Hello, I'm Sophie Till. This is a series of presentations about the Taubman-Gelansky approach to strings. The presentations form a comprehensive series, but have also been designed to work alone, so they can be used in various ways. They address some of the fundamental principles of the approach and show how these principles can provide answers to some of the most commonly asked questions by players of all levels, from professionals to students. The information presented makes most sense when we feel it ourselves, combining knowledge and sensation. There is an immediately recognizable, clear physical logic to it. While these presentations are not a substitute for hands-on work, they can offer an entry point to this wonderful information. We need to come to terms with some irrefutable facts. Firstly, our fingers are different lengths. If you hold your hand out in front of you, you can see that there is a long, short design of the fingers. This is something we cannot change. Secondly, our fingers have varying capacities to lift and drop. If you try moving your first finger up and down, it feels okay. Now try with second, and it doesn't feel so good. And 3 feels terrible, and 4 feels okay, but it's so short. However, we can move all our fingers together as a team in a small up and down motion comfortably and easily. It is important to notice that even when they lift together this way, they cannot lift very far before reaching an extreme range of motion. In other words, the engineering in our hand means that our fingers are varying lengths and do not have the same capacity to lift and drop if they do so alone. No amount of exercising our fingers will change this, but that doesn't mean that there is not a way for the fingers to feel equal. We need to take the design of the hand as it is, and by using our knowledge of coordinate motion, enable the fingers to play equally on the instrument with ease and comfort. First, we need to know what the instrument actually requires in order to produce pitch, and therefore what is actually necessary for the left arm to do. This sounds obvious, but just as with tone production, we get so caught up in the emotional demands of the music that our understanding of how the instrument works and how the body functions can become blurred into our feelings for the music. In this case, we need to consider the reality of how pitch is produced, so we are completely clear about where the point of sound is for the left arm. In practical terms, the string has to have a proximity to the fingerboard that adjusts the length of the string to produce a different pitch. We have to remember that we are only playing the string. We are not playing the whole violin. Because we have the instrument close to our face and we are holding it, it is very common for us to think that we are playing the whole violin and confuse which part is doing what task. I am holding the whole violin, but playing the string. So how much do I really need? What does the string actually require? And the answer is very little, a lot less than we think. If you feel the string with your right hand, you can easily feel how little this is. The string is so close to the fingerboard already. It is helpful to picture what is going on here. The string has to meet the wood. The finger is predominantly on the string. Some finger will go around the string, but it is the string meeting the wood, not the finger meeting the wood as such. You can probably sense this very easily with your right hand. You can feel the string plus the fingerboard. Yet when we play, we tend to drive our fingers into the wood, doing as much as possible in the hope that this will give us clarity. When we don't get that clarity, our tendency is to do even more. But we are really just obliterating the string and causing problems in the hand and arm, which usually radiates further up the arm into the neck and beyond. One of the most important ways that the brain computes how much to do a task successfully is through touch. We feel the object we want to hold, and through touch, we know exactly how much to hold it. We would know immediately if we were squeezing or gripping it in daily life, and we hold and touch objects all the time without misjudging how much to use. One of the results of pressing very hard with the left hand is that we, in essence, obliterate this sense of touch, so we cannot compute how much we actually need. Then we tend to just do as much as possible. But what I need to know and feel is exactly where the point of sound is for the string, and to know what it feels like for the left hand to play to the point of sound exactly. I can feel the string connecting to the wood and the fleshy part of the finger gently making that connection. This is simple to feel when you do it with your right hand. And it's helpful to put the violin in a different position. An analogy is helpful here too. When you walk, your feet touch the ground, and through touch, your body senses how much to connect to the ground to walk successfully. In other words, it senses what we call the down. How much down is necessary to connect easily to the ground, to be present and free to move up and on. If you spend a day slamming your feet into the ground beyond this point, first you would not move very fast and certainly would not be entering a running race. And then your legs would probably not be feeling so good and you would probably have pain in all kinds of places. We are not designed to go beyond the point of contact in anything we do. We aim, we feel, and through touch we sense how much to do. Otherwise we will jolt and jam up our whole system. This is the same for the left hand. We are essentially walking and running with our fingers, hand, and arm. We need to know where the point of sound is, where the ground is, and that is where we stop. Anything beyond that is a waste of energy and creates tension. Anything less and we don't get pitch. Feeling the string in the right hand is very helpful. You can just lie the violin flat so you can feel the strings in a different position to help you find this and break the usual associations when the violin is in playing position. We always want the least amount necessary. Usually, when we don't get clarity, we try more pressure. But pitch is made when the string meets the wood and is stopped in that spot. That is a definite point. Anything beyond that point of sound is a complete waste of energy and will merely hamper the hand's ability to move. If I go more into the fingerboard, beyond the point of sound, I don't get more pitch, volume, or expression. In fact, the string cannot vibrate as well, and I just create problems for the instrument and my arm. This raises an interesting practice issue. We tend to think more is better, but more isn't always better. What we should be aiming for is to learn what is just the right amount. This is helpful to remember. Practicing needs to help us figure out exactly what that right amount is, no more or less, so we can always get to the same place precisely. So if our fingers are unequal in length and capacity, how can we get them easily and equally to the point of sound? In both presentations on the fundamental bow arm and the holding of the violin, we looked at the basic alignment of the finger, hand, and forearm unit. We looked at how it is this basic alignment that enables the forearm to lend its support to the hand and the fingers in daily activity, enabling them to function within their comfortable capacity. Most of the time, we instinctively align the arm this way in daily activities. And it is through this same basic alignment that the forearm can lend its support to the playing finger. In the presentation of holding the violin, we looked at the falling up motion plus the fundamental forearm rotation that enables the left arm to come to the instrument with the basic alignment of finger, hand, and forearm unit. I'm going to use the same movements, but send myself to a finger and to landing on a finger. I can feel the string and the wood, and because the finger, hand, and forearm unit is lined up, each of the fulcrums is doing its share of supporting. The forearm can lend its support as needed so the finger can be connected to the string. It feels secure but sensitive and alive. The arm is engaged but free. Notice that I'm doing this as one movement. It is large so I can feel it clearly, but I'm not tweaking it when I get there or trying to make the fingers play on a certain part, or getting to the violin and then as a separate movement getting the finger to the string. I'm aiming at a pitch and sending the arm there in one movement. You can do this on all the fingers. Notice also that I'm using my right hand to support the violin in the top right hand corner, so when I let the left arm go, I do not have to hold the violin with the back of my neck and my head alone. So let's go through all the fingers. Notice I gently let go with my right hand when the left hand is present. When we do it this way, all the fingers can feel good. I am gently down on the string. At first, it's hard for us to believe that this will actually produce pitch. But if you fall up to a pitch and then without changing the left hand at all add the bow, you hear the sound coming out very clearly. It's very surprising at first how little we need and how gently we touch the strings. By doing this, we can learn where the point of sound is. We can feel the string and hear the result, therefore learning exactly how much, or rather how little, we need. We can feel the string at the point of sound. We are down and connected to the string, and the arm is free and present to the surface. It's important to notice where the non-playing fingers are. We are usually very concerned with the playing finger, forgetting that the remaining fingers have a huge impact. If, for example, I'm playing my fourth finger, that little finger is playing down into the string. This is fine and no problem as long as I take everything with me. The non-playing fingers and the arm are all organized to the fourth finger. But when the non-playing fingers are pulling in the opposite direction, I have dual muscular pull. My poor little finger is trying to play the string while the others are dragging the arm backwards and often upwards too. This leaves the little finger in an isolated position. It has to stretch to reach and it has no support to go up and down, so it has to isolate its movements and as a result will feel very weak. In truth, it is very weak in this arrangement. Our bodies are very smart and what we feel is accurate. When things feel weak, they are weak, but we don't need bigger muscles or more exercises. It means the task has not been organized and distributed through the system. There is always another way that feels solid and supported. What gives us the sense of solidity and support is taking everything with us, including the non-playing fingers, which are always in neutral, thereby enabling the playing finger to get all the support it needs from the forearm so it can feel solid and strong. Neutral for the playing fingers is really how they feel when the arm is just hanging by your side. They aren't going anywhere, they aren't pulling in any direction, and they are weightless and present together. This means we cannot leave the old fingers hanging onto the strings. Just as when we walk, we don't leave the old foot stuck on the ground. If we did, we wouldn't be able to move forward. Our whole body would be rooted to that old foot. This is exactly the same for the fingers and arm. If I leave down the non-playing fingers, they will be taking the forearm away from the finger that is producing pitch, and the forearm will not be able to connect behind the new playing finger. This does not mean that the old fingers lift themselves off. They will come off easily as the arm adjusts over to the new note, just as the old foot leaves the ground easily as we swing ourselves over to the next foot. It needs to be clear that as the technique advances and the music becomes more complex, there are situations that require fingers to remain near a spot, and of course we play double stops. But there are ways to handle this without compromising the fundamental alignment and without stopping the forearm from lending its support to the playing fingers. But we have to start at the beginning of the process. So back to our four-finger pattern. You can see the old fingers easily letting go as the arm adjusts over to the new note. What becomes clear then is that the arm is going to have to make adjustments all the time to enable each finger to get to its optimum playing position. There is no one arm position for all the fingers. This might sound alarming and complicated, but we make adjustments all the time to get our feet to their optimum position for walking. If I take 4 steps forward and 4 backwards, my body has to adjust for each foot. I can't put my body in one position and expect to be able to walk forwards and backwards 4 steps. It would feel and look very funny. We go up and down steps, walk on different surfaces at different speeds, all without issue, clearly making multiple adjustments so that the walking mechanism feels the same and remains easy. For our fingers, hand and forearm, we're talking minuscule adjustments. Almost everything about the playing is minuscule. The instrument is a miniature universe to work in. The adjustments that we need to make to accommodate the inequality of the fingers are very specific. So let's look at each in turn. The first is called in and out. In and out movements address the issue of different finger lengths. It is a diagonal movement across the string. It takes me into the strings this way and out from them this way. The movement always comes from the forearm down here. When we don't have the in and out movement functioning, we often try and curl the fingers to make them match the straight string. But as we already said, while the string is a straight line, the fingers themselves do not form a straight line. Curling is one of the 5 main causes of pain and injury. We've already mentioned 2 others, stretching and isolating. You can take a look at all 5 together in the short presentation on the 5 main causes of pain and injury. Curling refers to the last joint of the finger or thumb being pulled in, which creates tension in the hand that radiates all the way up the arm. It may be 1 or multiple fingers, but even the slightest curling will create tension. If we just take the basic 4-finger pattern and start by letting the arm fall up and then rest down on the strings with the hand in its normal shape, not prefixed into some playing shape with the fingers arranged, you can clearly see the long and short design of the fingers over the string. If I do the same thing and this time land on my first finger, you can see where the non-playing fingers are in their neutral state. So then, if I want to move to a C sharp, I will be going to a longer finger, which, if you look at the non-playing fingers, will require the arm to move out. This enables the second finger to land easily on that C sharp without needing to curl its extra length in. Then from here, we can see the next note D, which is a move to a shorter finger, so I will need to adjust in, enabling 3 to land comfortably, and then finally the 4th finger is further because it is shorter still, so I'll have to move in again. It will be the reverse on the way down. From 4 to 3 will require my arm to move out because I am moving to a longer finger. Then 3 to 2 will require the arm to move out again as it is a longer finger. My first finger is almost exactly the right place and just needs a tiny adjustment to get there. If I add the bow, you can see that these adjustments are almost imperceptible when you look, but we can feel them clearly when we play. We are back to realizing that there is this essential yet almost invisible world of coordinate motion that underlies the playing. As players, we can feel these things very vividly, but to someone watching, they are barely noticeable. Because we're using our long short finger design over 4 parallel strings, we do have to apply the in and out adjustments to the context we are playing in. So if I fall up to my first finger in 3rd position, and the next note is an A on the D string, you can see from the non-playing fingers that in this case I will have to move slightly in to get to that second finger. But conversely, if I wanted to go from the same starting pitch to a B on the E string, I would need to move out. So the in and out adjustments are dictated by the context we are playing in. Knowing this is a huge relief. There is no guessing needed. If I look at the context of the notes I need on the strings and I look at the design of my hand and know I have to obey both, the pattern and the arm has to take is dictated. So when we start working this way, it seems complicated, but in reality it isn't. Initially, we do have to think and to work things out, but because it is physically logical to move this way, the body likes the information, which makes us absorb it quickly. In the end, we make these adjustments instinctively because we know what the fingers should feel like on the string. Once it's worked in, we don't have to compute each movement as a separate activity. We move because we feel the equality. The second adjustment is higher and lower. Higher and lower very simply refer to the height of the arm up and down when we move from the bottom of the elbow. It's the same movement you would use to pull the cord that turns on a fan or a light. So let's go back to our finger pattern. At the beginning, we looked at the limited lifting capacity of the fingers when they lift and drop as a team within what is comfortable and easy. If we are to stay within this capacity, then the arm has to get the fingers to a height from which they can drop easily and comfortably to the string without strain. In other words, a tiny amount. If they are too high off the strings, they will have too far to go, like lifting your legs very high when you walk. We already said that if I'm going from 1 to 2 in a 4-finger pattern on the same string, the arm will have to adjust out to accommodate the extra length of the second finger. The arm will also have to move lower towards the floor in order to allow the finger to just drop easily to the string. If the arm doesn't make that height adjustment, the second finger will be higher away from the string and will have to work harder to fall into place. If I show it with the height adjustment, you can see the second finger directly over its spot so it can easily drop into place. Now if I take that height adjustment out, I still have to curl the finger to get to the string, which will create tension in the hand and arm. Now if we continue on with the pattern, going 2 to 3 will require my arm to go in and higher. And from 2 to 4, 3 to 4, in and higher again. This will be reversed on the way down. 4 to 3 will be out and lower. 3 to 2 will be out and lower. 2 to 1 will be in and a tiny bit higher. Again, just as we did with the in and out movements, the height adjustments are contextual according to the arrangement of notes over the 4 strings and the combination of fingers in use. It's not always the case that we play out and lower or in and higher. They will combine always. So let's take a simple example. If I'm in 3rd position and play F sharp and want to play E on the A string and then G on the D string, I will still move out to my second finger, but I will actually play out and higher to minimize the distance to my first finger. If I played out and lower on that second finger, you can see that it takes the finger too far away from the next note, which would require a large adjustment to get there. The whole purpose is to make the smallest adjustments necessary so that the fingers can just drop into place with ease. When we walk, we choose the most economical direct route from one spot to the next, not the most circuitous. Once we have in and out and higher lower, we can start to have a toolbox to solve problems. The experience of a finger being too short or too long is usually a missing in and out, higher lower adjustment. Knowing this makes quick work of solving the problem. I know which tool to pick up to do the job. The third adjustment is lateral adjustment. Lateral adjustment is the walking hand and arm. We have to move along the strings, which requires this lateral movement. This is probably the most familiar, but we often don't use it in the smaller adjustments and tend to think of it only when we are actually shifting from position to position. But even in the 4-finger pattern, there are lateral adjustments as each note is further along the string or in one or other direction. The lateral adjustment is part of the walking hand and arm, and we looked at this same principle in the discussion on tone production and the right arm. Walking hand and arm refers to the finger hand and forearm unit always moving together in all directions. So when we move along the strings, the arm always moves as a unit. We can't leave bits behind or send bits in advance, or the entire support system is disabled. In the 4-finger pattern, the arm is moving laterally in tiny amounts from finger to finger. Everything moves together. This is particularly important when the distance between the notes is larger. So for example, when we move from 3 to 4, we need more lateral motion to get there, or the finger will feel a need to stretch. When we make a shift to a new position, everything moves together in the lateral direction also. Moving to a new position is actually a tiny leap from one place to another, and we need to employ the same ingredients as leaping, or we'll be dragging ourselves around. Leaping or shifting is an entire topic, but even at this initial stage, we need to put in the concept of lateral adjustments. When you jump with your legs and body, you would never think of trying to send your body or arms or any other part ahead, or of leaving parts behind. Everything goes together as an organized and balanced unit, or you won't make it. Very often when we move to a new position on the instrument, we do try and leave parts behind or send them on ahead. A common issue is breaking the fulcrum of the wrist or sending the thumb at a different time. Both of these involve breaking the fundamental alignment. Breaking a fulcrum is another of the 5 main causes of pain and injury. Whenever a fulcrum moves out of alignment, another will have to compensate, and the balance in the overall mechanism will be thrown off. So when we try and move with a broken fulcrum in this way, we land out of alignment, and the finger cannot just drop to the note. It will be off balance in the new spot, which will affect speed and intonation. But when we move laterally with walking hand and arm, everything moves together and we can land easily. This applies to small distances and to large distances. So we need to take special look at the role of the thumb, as all this has implications for the thumb, which is of course part of the finger, hand and forearm unit. We refer to the thumb as a hybrid non-playing finger. It seems an elaborate name for it, but it is helpful as it clarifies the fact that the thumb is touching the instrument but does not need to produce pitch. We know from the presentation on holding the violin that the thumb does not play an isolated role holding up the instrument, but simply functions as part of the entire unit. The thumb has 2 basic requirements. First, it relates towards the fingers. It cannot work in the opposite direction without causing strain. What this means is that every time we land and play down on a finger, the thumb gently settles in relationship to that finger. This doesn't mean that the thumb moves directly opposite each finger. It cannot do that because it's attached to the first finger end of the hand. But the thumb does have to make an adjustment in relation to the finger that is playing. Secondly, it has to move along with the finger, hand and forearm unit whenever everything moves over to the next note. If I move through the 4-finger pattern using all the adjustments we have talked through, you can see the thumb gently and easily being moved along. I don't have to make it move, it's being moved by the forearm, so it is ready and willing to move on cue. The touch in the thumb has to be extremely gentle. Because it doesn't have to produce pitch, its contact can be minute, and we need all the forearm support to help the playing finger. If too much forearm is going to the thumb, it will detract from the playing finger, so its touch is light yet alive and ready to move. Just as with the bow hand, the shape of the thumb is crucial as it affects how efficiently it works. And just as we said earlier, the fingers often curl to line up with the strings, which creates tension throughout the hand and arm. The thumb can sometimes curl also. It develops an outward curl. And when the thumb is curling, it will be gripping the neck and will seriously hamper the movement of the arm and will force the fingers to tighten, creating tension all the way through the hand and the arm. The thumb should have the same shape that it has when you touch any ordinary object. What you can see is that the knuckle has a soft, rounded look, or what we describe as being present. It is there and ready to respond, but not forcing the hand and arm in any way. The thumb knuckle has to be very gentle and present on the violin too. Equally, if the thumb straightens, it will be pushing. This often happens when the arm needs to move under the neck. The thumb thinks it needs to push upwards, but all it needs to do is to follow in the same relationship to the fingers. So a push would look like this. And often the thumb comes under the neck and starts to push this way, rather than following. Where should my left thumb go on the violin is a very common question. the question itself is indicative of the source of confusion. In daily life, we don't ask where our thumbs should go because they always go with us. They go with the hand and arm to which they are attached. We don't consider where the thumb touches the various objects we come into contact with during daily activities. What dictates where the thumb goes is not a particular spot on the violin necessarily. We all have different sized hands, so this will not be the same for each of us. But what is the same, regardless of the size of the hand, is that its position is dictated by the relationship to the hand and the fingers, which has to be consistent all the time. This will then tell us where it goes on the instrument, but what we recognize is the consistency of the thumb to hand and arm combination. So the answer to the question is, if I maintain my thumb's relationship with my fingers and hand, that will put me on a specific place on the violin, and I can work out where that will touch. The thumb often needs special attention, as it is common for it to have been doing all its own thing in somewhat heroic proportions, rather than simply being a part of the unit and responding to the forearm at all times. If I go back through my four-finger pattern, you can see the adjustments and the thumb working together at the command of the forearm, enabling the fingers to feel equally solid, clearly understanding the point of sound, and easily connecting to the string. All these tiny adjustments enable the fingers to feel the same. The fingers themselves cannot make the adjustments. The forearm makes the adjustments and gets each finger to the optimum place, so the finger just drops into place. Just as when walking, the leg sends the foot over to the spot where it needs to land, and it simply lands. The foot doesn't drag itself there or distort itself to get to its next spot. Once these adjustments are worked into the system, we actually just feel the fingers are the same. If they do suddenly feel different, we know which tool to pick up, what to add, what to change to make them feel equal again. It is not magic, or more muscles, or strength, or more hours of practice. It is concrete information that is recognizable and can be learned. There's one final important point. All these tiny adjustments, once trained in, are connected and packaged together by one host movement, forearm rotation. Forearm rotation is the only movement that can move at the same speed as the fingers. And in addition to the uses we've already looked at, it is the way the arm propels itself from note to note. Once learned, it is an invisible motion that is the center or the engine for all these tiny adjustments. Forearm rotation from finger to finger enables us to combine all these elements at lightning speed in one go. But the first important step is to learn what the adjustments are and feel how they enable the fingers to just drop into place, keeping in mind that there is a movement that then connects all these elements at speed.